Okay, so this video is a new video. It's called the geometry of force, or spin force geometry, or the geometry of spin force or spin forces. Now, this is a video that kind of grows out of many things I've thought about for many years, but also more recently I was doing a little reading and I came upon back to Pythagoras's ideas as well as Heraclitus, and I kind of took those two principles and joined them together. The principle that geometry is at the root of the cosmos, and that change or flux is at the root of everything. But these aren't mutually exclusive ideas. I think the problem with most thinkers is that they've went too much in the direction of wanting to be overly absolutist or overly relativistic, and the problem is you just miss the whole point of how reality really works. So some people who have touched on some of these ideas very well are people like Walter Russell. Obviously these kind of ideas have been touched upon in the Tao Te Ching, the yin and yang theories, and then of course the most recent kind of ones that really kind of hit on the underlying principle that helps make sense of all this would be Albert Roy Davis and Walter C. Rawls. This basic theory that there are two magnetic spins really kind of sets the stage for everything else. These two fundamental spins of clockwise, one anti-clockwise. Now what I have here is this drawing. Now it's a very simple drawing. It's kind of like a clock, sort of. But what's important about this drawing is that it's just like a circle of alternating magnetic spins. So you have this spin going this way, this spin going that way. But what's most interesting about this drawing is that from these two spins going right here, you have a force going outward. And then from these two spins right here, you have a force coming downward, and it goes all the way around like this. And so what you have with this basic model, this picture of reality, is you have a very simple drawing or illustration of how and maybe even why the expansive and contractive forces of nature and of creation work. So see, you have these forces going outward. These are the expansive forces, but then you have these forces coming inward, which are the contractive forces. But as you see, all of these are defined and described very simply by alternating clockwise and anti-clockwise magnetic spins. So in other words, when you lay out a grid, I have this grid which I keep coming back to, which is kind of the basic starting point that I had gotten to of laying out a grid of north and south magnetic spins, and then mapping out these magnetic current flows of diagonal, diamond, double helix, etc. But there's a larger kind of pattern of expansion and contraction which I really was not clear on how it worked. And I think that this may be the answer right here, that this obviously isn't a complete geometry of force, but I think of spin forces, of contractive forces and expansive forces, which would be the source of all wave phenomena. In other words, magnetic waves. In other words, this contractive forces and expansive forces would be what would happen as a consequence. You'd have all the wave phenomena of nature and of reality would be rooted in these basic magnetic. They would grow out of the expansive and contractive forces that are a byproduct of alternating north-south magnetic spins at all points in space. So that, as you see, you have these forces going inward and outward, and so all of these things of expansion and contraction would be accounted for. So yeah, that's important. It's the beginnings of trying to map out the geometry of forces. not geometry as an absolute thing, not change as merely a relativistic phenomenon that is chaotic and that doesn't have any structure, but something where you take the principle of geometry and instead of trying to map out the geometry of substances, try to map out the geometry of forces. And you could get very specific. You could map out the expansive forces and the contractive forces, which is this as in this drawing, but you could also get more minute and map out the whole range of north and south magnetic force, kind of spin forces and current flows, as I've tried to map out in these other kind of diagrams. So yeah, just something to think about and work on. Thanks. Bye.